Hi book lover, it's Wednesday and I'm back with an update. Oh, by the way, if you are new here, if this is the first video that you see of me, hi, I'm Barbara. I moved to Portugal end of 2019. I am a fiction writer. My books have been published since 2020 and were translated into English and French. On this channel I will take you along my writing journey. I'm currently writing my third thriller. I share with you the books that I read and I try to show you the coziest and most beautiful places to go in Portugal. Oh, and I also drink a lot of coffee. So I did some writing this morning. I started off at 64,914 words and today I wrote another 681 words, which brings me to the baffling total of 65,595 words. Yay! So I read Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason. It's a relatively new book. It came out in 2021. Sorrow and Bliss tells the story of Martha. From the beginning it's obvious that her mom is very troubled. She drinks a lot. And Martha is very troubled as well. And at age 17, something happens to her. She explains it herself as if a little bomb exploded in her head. From that time on, everything changes for Martha. It's a story about mental illness. Meg Mason doesn't mention what illness Martha has. If we know what disease Martha has, I think it's only natural for us to fill in the blanks ourselves. Because we all have our own ideas about, for example, depression or borderline or bipolar disease. So I think in a way it's a good thing that we don't know what Martha has. It's literally a blank in the book, and I'm kind of liking that. Another thing that I really liked about this book was the dialogues that Martha has with her sister Ingrid. They are really very funny. The book is advertised as being very funny, hilarious and witty. I don't agree. I don't agree at all. I didn't roll over the floor laughing. I felt for Martha a lot. So no, it's not a funny book at all. But some of the dialogues are really, I really loved them. They were so recognizable. I mean, Ingrid, she pops out one baby after another. Ingrid's humor is very dry and very sarcastic. This is a good example of Ingrid. I met Ingrid for lunch in Primrose Hill. It was the first time she had left a baby, even though he was 8 months old. I asked her if she missed him. She said she felt like she had just got out of high security prison. And I think that's funny because I recognize that. I mean, people asked me the same thing when I went back to work. Like, do you miss your baby? I was like, no. Unpopular, maybe, but truth. The writing in general, by the way, was really lovely. Meg Mason has beautiful writing style, I think. But she has this way of starting a dialogue outside of the dialogue. Let me see if I can give you an example of that. Okay, so the sentence starts, it's Martha's mother is saying something. So the sentence goes like this. She said Martha, full stop. So there were no quotation marks. She said Martha, full stop. I blinked back at her, full stop. Open quotation marks. Did you hear what I said? Close them. Close quotation marks. I don't know if you see what I mean, but she said Martha should be, in my traditional mind, should be she said, open the quotation marks, Martha, did you hear what I said? So what Meg Mason does here is a very creative way of writing down dialogue, but it can sometimes be confusing because in this example I I still understood what she was saying, but there were parts that I had to reread sentences because I wasn't sure who was saying what. Let me read this part to you. This will show you, first of all, how beautifully written this book is, and why it really touched me, but also this really quirky way of doing the dialogues. It's a conversation between Martha and Patrick, her husband. Patrick finally turned around and said quietly that the only thing he did remember, which wasn't from a photo, was one time in the kitchen of the house they lived in before she died, he asked for an apple, and she was handing it to him, and as she was handing it to him, she said, "Do you need me to start it for you? I don't know why." "How old were you? 5 or something?" I said, "You probably didn't have front teeth." There isn't a name for the emotion that registered on his face then. It was all of them. Patrick left after that. I had to reread this. The "I don't know why" is in quotation marks, but the rest isn't. And maybe this is me, but this is sometimes confusing. But that's so beautiful. There isn't a name for the emotion that registered on his face then. It was all of them. So yeah, I had very mixed emotions about this book. Like I said, I found it was very well written. I could really feel Martha's illness, and Meg Mason really described it very well, how Martha struggled, how her family struggled. I was really immersed in it as well. I felt bad myself when I was reading it, and that says something. But on the other hand, I couldn't feel Martha's heart as much as I could feel her head, if that makes sense. So the mental illness, yeah, I got it, I felt it. Her as a person, her personality, who she was, it was like, it was almost like I only got to know a mental illness and not a person. So that was something that I struggled with a little. I wasn't really convinced about the ending. It was a very neat ending, everything tied together nicely, but a bit too nicely maybe for a book that is this heavy. I thought Martha's mother as a character wasn't very believable. Her transformation, her character arc, I did not buy it. But does that mean that you shouldn't read this book? Absolutely not. I would definitely recommend Sorrow and Bliss. It's a very well written book that stirs up a lot of emotions, I think, and it gives you stuff to think about. So yeah, definitely recommend it. I think I would give it 4 stars. So absolutely, if you read it, let me know what you think. If you have read it, if you agree or disagree with anything I just said now, you know, it's all so subjective, of course, but I would love to hear what you think. And yeah, just let me know, okay? Let me know. What's next? Well, right now I'm reading Violetta by Isabel Allende. I'm like 25% in, and I'm not really loving it yet, but I'm still hoping this will change. I will let you know in my next video. idea what NanoWrimo was until after my first book was published. Well, maybe I should explain to you if you don't know what it is. NanoWrimo stands for National Novel Writing Month, and this is every year in November. And the goal is to write a novel in 1 month. Now that seems like an unachievable task, and it is. It is. Well, the goal is to write 50,000 words in 1 month, which can be a novel, a short one, but it can, for sure, it can be the first draft of a novel. I've been using it to draft my all my novels, and as we are now October 2022, I am prepping, this is called Preptober, for NanoWrimo 2022. And this NanoWrimo, I will attempt to write the first draft of my new feel-good novel. Okay, so NanoWrimo needs some preparation, obviously, because it's insane to write so many words in such a short time. I mean, I think it's insane. Some people sit down and the words just flow out of their fingertips. I'm not that kind of person. For me, the hardest part is always my first draft. The part where you need your imagination still to create an entire story. I have difficulty in doing both at the same time. So I need to have an outline. It doesn't need to be a very elaborate outline. It can be just a bullet point outline. So what I do in preparation for this new book, because it's a new book and I do this for every new book, regardless of it being NanoWrimo, what I just did is I outlined my characters, the characters in my book. I answered some questions, like, for example, what is their personality like? Are they introverted, extroverted? I use the MBTI coding for that. What is their function in the book? What is their relationship to my main character? How will this character develop during the story, the character arc? So stuff like that. Write this down before I start writing the book. So that's what I'm doing now. So I wrote down my characters. I have a lot of them because the book is about 7 girls. So I have a lot of characters because there's obviously also a guy involved and some side characters as well. So I wrote down the main characteristics of all these characters. I also just wrote a blurb. This is like a snapshot of what the book is about. This is not the official blurb, not the one that will eventually show up at the back of the book, but it's something that I can use, that I can reread when I'm losing track of the story. So to summarize, what I do in preparation for NanoWrimo is I write a blurb, I write down all my characters and with all the profiles and everything, and then I write a bulleted outline. I haven't made that one. That's what I'm going to do right now after I talk to you. I'm going to make that outline. And when I've done all that, when my creative imagination process is finished, then I will put all the notes that I made, everything that I made. By the way, I do this in Notion. I use Notion for the gathering of my thoughts, to bring together all the little parts. And then once I'm ready to start writing, which will be now on the 1st of November, when I sit down to write, I use Scrivener. So before I sit down to write, I will transfer everything I made in Notion to Scrivener. Now, you might ask yourself why I do this, because why not use Scrivener already from start? Well, the simple reason is that Notion is more versatile. You can use it on your iPhone, on the iPad, you can use it on the go, while Scrivener I can only use on my laptop. Maybe there is a way around that, but I don't know it. So that's why. And I always come up with ideas when I'm not sitting at my laptop, which is very typical. I think most writers can agree on that. I will dive into my bullet pointed outline right now. When I finished everything, when I finished all my preparations, I will check in with you again and I will tell you about this story of the 7 girls that I will be writing in November. But until now, it's still top secret. So if you are curious now to know what my book will be about, then don't forget to subscribe and I will let you know in the next video. Obrigado, bye for now. Ciao.